everyone, and welcome to MeowMix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry. And again, we are going to talk about Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State. Justin Fields was the nation's #1 player coming out of high school in 2018. In high school, he was so highly touted, he was featured on QB1 Beyond the Lights Season 2, which currently is on Netflix. It's a good watch, especially if you're very interested in Fields. You get to see him kind of behind the camera and kind of leading his team. With all this attention, he had multiple offers and took some bad advice and decided to go to Georgia. I don't know. Okay, Georgia was coming off a season that ended in a national title loss with true freshman Jake Fromm as their quarterback. I'm glad he had the confidence to, go out there, think he could win the job. But, I mean, he's starting from the 8 ball. I mean, a true freshman led him to a national title. That coach is going to be very hard to pull that kid. So after losing the quarterback battle, he went ahead, followed out the year, and then transferred in the offseason to Ohio State. And from there, he started at Ohio State in 2019, led them to an undefeated season, but eventually lost to Clemson in the college football playoffs. In 2020, with a shortened season, Fields led Ohio State to another undefeated season and another college football playoff berth, but unfortunately lost to Alabama in the national championship game. But he did beat Clemson.
He did beat Clemson. About his, going to Georgia. I mean, he should have beat out Jake Fromm, right? Like, Jake Fromm was good in college. Has done nothing in the NFL, obviously. But if you're that Georgia coach, do you wish that you would have kept Fields and maybe let him win that competition?
Well, I mean, after that one national title, Georgia kind of struggled for a blue chip program. I mean,
yeah, I mean, they I don't think they made the college football playoff.
No, they haven't
last year okay.
So do I think he probably should have gone with Justin Fields? Yes. But from his coaching perspective, you got to think all this team rallied around Jake Fromm the last year. I mean, are you going to pull it out from under him? I mean, then that kind of puts this mindset in other players. Oh, am I just going to get yanked away from my spot too? Doing nothing wrong?
Does it talk about on that Netflix show why he committed to Georgia?
He's from Kennesaw, Georgia, and you can kind of see that everyone around him was like, "Go Dogs!" So,
okay, gotcha, makes sense. He's a good sized quarterback, 6'3", 228 pounds. We'll look at some of his stats here. We'll just do his Ohio State stats because even though he did get into 12 games at Georgia, he didn't really. Other than 300 passing yards, 200 rushing yards, 8 total touchdowns.
But as far as duty.
He got in there as like a gadget player, or when the Dogs were up by a lot. So, to 2019 Ohio State, he has 67.2% completion percentage, 3,273 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That ain't bad.
No.
484 rushing yards and 10 additional touchdowns. So 51 total touchdowns, 3 interceptions for 2019. 2020, an abbreviated year, only played in 8 games, 2,100 passing yards on the dot, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, an additional 383 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. So 27 total touchdowns, 6 interceptions in 2020. Again, he was hurt a little bit in 2020 towards the end of the year. So some of those numbers may be impacted a little bit by that. But, we saw him in the
national title game,
the playoffs. I'm trying to remember if the Big Ten had a championship game this year. I don't remember if they did.
I don't think they did. I don't know. I mean, he played 8 games, and that's with 2 playoff games. So
So they, Ohio State obviously played a weird schedule this year. So I don't know how much stock you can put in that. But for the pros for Justin Fields, obviously he's accurate as all get out. I mean, he 70% completion percentage in 2020. If you just watch him, I mean, he's putting the ball on the money every time. He can make every throw. He's got a super strong arm. He's mobile. You know, he gets out and runs around. He's not like a Lamar Jackson type where
Oh no.
he wants to get out and get 1,000 yards rushing. But he can scramble, and he is mobile in the pocket. Um, he is aggressive throwing the ball downfield, and he's got everything that you would want. Um, Now, Jerry, I do want to. Jerry puts our notes together prior to the show here, and you've got here Jerry as a pro. He throws receivers open and leaves receivers. And I, in one of my cons, I have often does not throw players open, waits for them to make their break before delivering the ball. So,
What I saw and what I kind of was reading, that's what they said,
yeah,
that he would throw the ball. I mean, it could be, hit and miss sometimes. I mean, that's kind of going into his cons. He struggles with his field vision, and maybe it's getting to that second player, he does not throw him open, but when he's going to the first one, he does throw them open better.
yeah, and I think that it's a lot like Trey Lance, where you have such a high level of talent on your team and such a great level of coaching that you're scheming these guys open. They're almost open all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So, he's able to hit the first guy. From what I saw, he does tend to he doesn't really throw the ball, I guess, before the player makes his break a lot of the time. That doesn't necessarily mean he's not throwing them open. So maybe what you've got here is fine. But he does wait to deliver the ball until the guy is out of his break and kind of ready for the ball. Which you see a lot of quarterbacks, they're throwing the ball before the guy even turns around. So
now on his cons list, he needs to work on going through his progressions. A lot of times he'll just focus in on one guy and kind of just, one, if he's not there, he tries to run the ball, one or two, that's it, go. He does need to work on his going through his progressions. Luckily, he is mobile. That if that's his read, then that's it. He could still make positive plays out of that. Better field vision. Just kind of, field vision. He needs to see the play better. I did read that he was struggled a lot with team blitzes. When blitzed him, it got him confused. He wasn't making those quick decisions, and made mistakes, throwing completions, take sacks. He is aggressive in throwing the ball downfield, but can force the ball too much instead of checking it down. And this is kind of going back to that, needs to work on the progressions, needs to be able to read the field a little bit better and know when to check it down. And same with Trey Lance. More than Trey Lance. He had only 2 seasons, and one of those was an abbreviated season starting. So honestly, I see a lot of similarities between him and Trey Lance. The main difference is Fields played with a lot better competition and players around him than Trey Lance did. But both are mobile, both have good arms, both can chuck the ball down the field accurately. They need that little bit of time to work on reading the field better, going through progressions, and just, especially jumping to the NFL. Now, obviously, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, that's not really like a knock on either one of these guys. No. It's just they didn't have a ton of time in college. I mean, both of them really only had 1 full season starting. Fields did have, maybe another season worth of, almost a full season in 2020, but nothing in 2017 or 2018, I guess. So it's not a knock on these guys that were saying this. It's just that these are things that they need to work on, and young players often need to work on going through their progressions and, seeing the entire field, reading the defense, things like that. So I think this is going to be a common theme with a lot of these quarterbacks that we talk about.
And a big thing here too is we're talking about they're both going to go in the first round. I have no doubts about that, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah.
So we're not knocking them hard at all. It's just, these are some of the cons coming out of college, that he'll have to work on in the pros.
Yeah. Ohio State fans, we like Justin Fields.
Yeah, absolutely.
We like Justin Fields a lot.
Now, here's the really tough question, though. Will Justin Fields fall to the Panthers at 8?
I've got here doubtful. I've seen some mocks, as we talked about earlier, I've seen some mocks where he does get to the Panthers. But a lot of those mocks that I saw were before the Lions were going to get rid of Stafford. So I've seen some mocks recently since then that have Stafford Fields actually going to the Lions ahead of the Panthers. So, could the Panthers trade up a couple of spots if Fields is there at like 6 to jump ahead of the Lions and take him? Absolutely, they could. And I think they should, if that's the case. Because all you're going to really probably have to give up is maybe a second round or, to move up a couple of spots.
And I agree. I 100% agree. If there's if he's fallen to 6 and you can move up for a second rounder and your first, I would say go for it if you believe in him. Again, this is all if Matt Rule's coaching staff believes in Fields. I personally think he would, but
I mean, and there's, Fields could easily go number 2 to the Jets. Easily. There's a lot of people thinking that the Jets will stick with Darnold. But they've got a new head coach, and oftentimes a new head coach wants his own quarterback. And Fields is certainly worthy of going number 2. You've got number 4, Atlanta. You've got number 7 now, Detroit. So obviously number 1 we know is Lawrence. But so there's now 4 teams ahead of the Panthers that need quarterbacks. So will he get to the Panthers at 8? I don't think he gets to 8. I'll say that. Could the Panthers get him?
I don't either. I don't either. I think they would probably need to jump up if he falls a little bit to like 6.
Right.
Now, does he fit the current roster?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, this would be awesome. I think he would be an excellent, excellent Panther. And a massive upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater.
I do too.
Immediately.
I think he may be good to sit behind Teddy Bridgewater for at least half a season. I do think he is a little raw, but I mean, again, if he outshows him in camp, then he wins, and then you start him right away.
I think he's got every bit of, you could even say more, but physical attributes as far as throwing the ball that Teddy has, probably more because he's got a better arm.
Mm-hmm.
He's way better. He's way more mobile than Teddy, even though Teddy was surprisingly mobile this year. He's way more mobile than that.
And he doesn't wear 2 gloves.
Yeah. I think that if you with Trey Lance, I'm fine with Trey Lance sitting for a year, honestly. With Mac Jones, I'd be fine with Mac Jones sitting for a year. Zach Wilson probably would be fine for him sitting for a while. But I think Lawrence and Fields should be ready to go day 1, honestly. So I think, yes, he fits the roster. And man, would I like to see it.
I would love to see it.
What do you do with Bridgewater? Is he a $21 million backup?
No, but I mean, you could always, it depends on the situation. If a team comes calling with a 3rd round pick,
Oh man, do you think we could get a 3rd round pick for Bridgewater?
I saw something that his cap hit to them would be only 10 million, not we're eating a signing bonus. So I mean, I could see a 3rd round
Colts or
someone has an injured quarterback and they need a fill-in guy. I mean,
yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd gladly take a 3rd round pick for Teddy because I mean, you're basically only expecting him to be here 1 more year. So
yeah. I think we already covered. Would you be excited for this player to be drafted? I think we both would be screaming yes.
Absolutely.
Now, anything else you want to talk about before our big board?
I mean, do you have any major reservations about Justin Fields, in the NFL?
In the NFL, no.
I mean,
I
I know
would
we talked
I'd be
about cons, but like
I
we
would
both
be
expect
worried
him to
about
succeed.
rushing him out there and opposing defenses getting to him a lot and kind of shell shocking him. That would be kind of my fear because he does struggle with the blitzes. And if these defensive coordinators know that,
Yeah.
and then they can scheme up some very complex blitzes on him and confuse him, and he could get shell shocked. That was why I would be kind of worried or willing to let Teddy Bridgewater start out there.
Yeah. Maybe you're right. Mahomes was drafted around the 10th spot, I think, and he sat for a year behind Alex Smith when he was probably obviously more talented. So maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, and I've heard
I
Patrick
think
Mahomes say that Alex Smith taught him so much in that year
Yeah.
So
I think Panthers fans would be just apoplectic if Teddy Bridgewater started the season, you had Justin Fields on the team. I think they would just be absolutely.
This podcast would be going insane as well. But
are you kidding me?
But at the same time, realistically, that's probably would be a smart choice.
It probably would be, for the long-term health of the franchise and the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. So
where does he end up on our big board, Jerry? So right now, Micah Parsons, and these are just the guys we've talked about so far. So Micah Parsons is number 1. Trey Lance is number 2. Does Justin Fields bump Micah Parsons?
I'm holding up my number 1 sign. He's right up there at number 1 for us, in my opinion.
I agree. He would be the most exciting player for me. Micah Parsons, obviously I'd be excited for him as well. But yeah, I'm putting Fields number 1.
I am too. It's going to be hard to get him off that top 1, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's true. Although, there's a couple guys coming up that we're going to talk about, I think could at least maybe bump some of these other guys down the list a little bit. But, in Justin Fields, it's such a, it would take an interesting sequence of events for him to even be on the team. So I think obviously he's going to be number 1 because they'd probably have to trade up to get him.
Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know anybody off the top of my head, and we'll soon see. We'll see how the big board falls out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would be ecstatic if we got Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I wonder if he would wear number 1.
Ooh.
Because he wears 1 in college.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Nobody's wearing it right now, and the Panthers haven't retired it or anything. So, eventually somebody else is going to wear it.
Eventually.
That's the thing, though, is I heard a lot of people talk about, if he comes in, is the comparison automatically going to be Cam Newton? And
probably.
If he's not,
I hate to say it.
Cam Newton, because Cam Newton came out like gangbusters. First 400 yards his first 2 games passing. If Justin Fields doesn't do that and doesn't, have a successful first, season or 2, is everyone just gonna he's gonna be compared so unfavorably to Cam? And if he's wearing number 1, that even furthers that comparison. So, but maybe you want to be compared to Cam. Maybe you want that pressure and that expectation on yourself.
Yeah. So. I mean, he's from Georgia. Cam grew up in Georgia. I mean,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think this is best case scenario for the Panthers is being able to get him at 8 would be the best case scenario.
Oh, absolutely.
If he's there at 8 and the Panthers don't draft him, then we riot.
See, this is going back to my point of with Lance. If they don't pick that player, then obviously this coaching staff doesn't believe in him.
I guess, but I mean, how could you not? Fields he's so obviously talented and prepared and ready for the next level.
Oh yeah, he is definitely talented.
But then again, if he falls to 8, then you've got 7 other teams and 4 that needed quarterbacks who also passed on him. So,
yep.
What's the reason? Hopefully, we get to find out because I would love to see him fall to 8.
I'd love to see him in a Panther uniform.
Absolutely.
All right. We want to thank everyone for listening. If you like our show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. And if you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on our show. Next week, we'll be taking a look at Florida tight end Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about him because tight end is definitely a position of need, and he seems to be one of those guys that could be a generational type tight end. So we'll talk about him next week. And until then, everybody, stay safe out there and keep pounding.